Okay.
All right. Vancouver's a pretty big town. And if you're stuck there at Christmas, you always feel the urge to get out of town. Go somewhere else, somewhere that isn't so populated. Get away from fucking people and, and all their problems. Anyway, my first Christmas after I came back from Central America, I was living in this house in Vancouver, in the east end of Vancouver, which is not a very salubrious place. And Christmas approached, and Christmas was a pretty dreary prospect because it was just raining. It always does in Vancouver. It rains always at Christmas if it doesn't snow. And so I decided I'm going to get out of town. And one of my favorite places in BC, that is within range of Vancouver, and one of my favorite places has always been Tofino on the very, very west coast of Vancouver Island, which, as the crow flies, is not all that far from Vancouver, but the crow doesn't fly that way, or at least my crow doesn't. And if you're driving a car, you've got to cross the Strait of Georgia in a ferry, and then you've got to drive a long way across Vancouver Island, through the mountains, rugged scenery, beautiful scenery. And finally you get to Tofino, which is a sort of fishing village, which has become very, very popular with tourists and eco-terrorists, because it was the scene of the confrontation, the great confrontation in the 60s and 70s between the loggers and the ones who wanted to stop logging the old forests, because the old forests of BC are disappearing. You know, BC is becoming a lumber plantation, but the original old forests of BC are ancient trees, you know, 200 or 300 feet high, like the redwoods of California. But they're all being cut down. And so people who care about trees would congregate in Tofino and mount a mass protest and try and block the loggers, block them from getting into the forest and block them from bringing logs out. People would sleep up trees and drive spikes into the trees so they would wreck the sawmill, all sorts of sabotage. This was a favorite activity of a lot of people in BC. Save Clayoquot Sound, what was left of it. But anyway, Tofino is the scene of all this political activity, and also the scene of a lot of happy days in summer when the sun shines and it's warm. You can't swim in the sea, it's always icy cold. Well, you can if you're an Eskimo, but I never did swim in that sea, except when I was kayaking, because that's the place you go to surf. Because Tofino, being right out there on the front line of land, gets the full force of Pacific surf. So it's a famous place to go surfing. Mm-hmm. But anyway, I had in my mind this image of Tofino as being warm and sunny and delightful and scenic and full of a dramatic seascape and cliffs and mountains and forests and wonderful. So I thought, well, that's where I'll go this Christmas. Get out of dingy old Vancouver. So I had a van at the time, which was very lucky for me, because I could live in that van. In fact, I often did. I built, it was just a plain little commercial van, a Ford, and I had insulated it all around and then carpeted it so that you could sleep anywhere in the back of the van. You didn't even need a bed. I mean, the floor was so soft and warm. You could just sleep anywhere, and I used it when I went camping with my kids. We would all just roll around on the floor of the van. Didn't need a sleeping bag in summer. So anyway, I threw in my sleeping bag for good measure and some food, billy can for the tea, sugar, milk. I threw in all my necessities and drove out, got on the ferry, went over to Vancouver Island, and then started the long, long drive to Tofino on the west coast. And I should have realized by the time I got to Port Alberni, it was raining hard, as it can only rain in Port Alberni.
Now, where's Port Alberni? Mainland?
About halfway across the island. It's a big sawmill town. And it's famous for labor unrest and, psychopathic religion and, a real hick town. But a big hick town. Yeah. I should have realized when I got there, and the rain was just pouring. If I go any further west, it'll just get worse and worse. But I just kept driving west, naively optimistic, my usual self. It'll get better. In summer, it'll get better. So I kept on driving, and I got to Tofino, and it was pissing with rain, just howling. And the wind was so strong that the rain came at you horizontally. Came right in your face, and it was just a constant cold shower. So I thought, well, I'm not going to bother looking for a campground of my own. I'll just cruise into the government campground, the park, because it is a national park. And I went there, and of course there was nobody there. It was closed, obviously, for the season. No one in his right mind goes camping at Tofino in the winter. And so I found a nice campsite with a view of the rain and the sea, which was thrashing around madly below. And I parked my van. That's a nice, cozy place to sleep. But the only problem is when you're camping, you need a fire to make your tea and everything else. Well, firewood was quite a problem at that time of year. There was plenty of it because being a nice government campground, they had thoughtfully provided great stacks of firewood, free, split, cut to length. Logs all split up.
All perfect, ready to go.
Yeah, but it was all soaking wet and getting soaking wetter every minute.
So it wasn't under a cover. It
wasn't under cover, no. It just stacks of firewood just piled up between the campsites, all of which were empty except mine. So I gathered up a pile of likely-looking wood, and I split it open to get at the dry stuff inside.
You got some kindling out of the inside?
Yeah, I made some I had an axe, yeah. At least I had an axe. And so with the aid of some gasoline from the tank of my van, I managed to get a little fire going. And I cut some more dry wood out of the wet logs and get a bigger fire going. And I got a big fire going, and I got a great big fire going. And I thought, well, if I've got a good fire going, I better dry some firewood. So I stacked up the wet firewood all round the fire in a ring or a square around the fire. I forget. A square, I think. And I stacked it up about 4 feet high with a fire in the center. The only problem with that was it was very difficult to cook on that fire because you had to reach over the firewood or climb over the firewood to get to the fire, and then it was too hot, it burned your pants. And anyway, I managed to get a cup of tea going after about 3 hours. So that made my day. Like this cup of tea is making my day here. Yeah.
It's really good tea. My dad's had a lot of practice making
the best tea in the world. Made with ginger. But in those days, I hadn't yet discovered ginger. I just made tea with tea and water.
Yeah.
Which is still pretty good.
And then milk and sugar.
Yeah. But now I make it with ginger.
Powerful stuff.
Wow. And tea. So anyway, I spent a whole Christmas season, what, 3 weeks, 3 days, or whatever it was. I spent it there, and the rain never stopped for a second. It just howled and screamed and blew and farted all around. And there was nothing to do but look at the rain or stand in the rain. I had a waterproof poncho.
Oh yeah, who were you there with? Anybody else?
No, I was there all by myself.
Oh, I thought you brought kids. Okay.
Well, I did in the summer, yeah. I brought my kids there in the summer, and that's why I went there in the winter, because I thought, oh yeah, nice, warm, sunny Tofino. Ah, cold and wet and howling wind.
Like the Sunshine Coast.
Yeah, just like the Sunshine Coast in the winter.
At the same time of year, yeah.
Yeah, don't go there in winter. Anyway, I learned my lesson.
Mm-hmm.
And I've largely forgotten anything else about that trip. All I can remember is keeping that big fire going to dry out the firewood.
To keep it going.
But it would only dry the inside of the square of firewood. Then you had to reverse all the logs, so the wet end would be inside, and then the dry end got wet in the rain. So it was a never-ending process, turning the firewood, roasting the firewood.
And then feeding the fire.
Yeah, and feeding the fire with the dry wood, or semi-dry wood. But once you get a big fire going, it'll burn anything, you know.
Uh-huh.
So
if you had a big cover like a palapa or something, then you could be doing this under there, and then it wouldn't be raining on the wood that you're drying.
Yeah.
But there wasn't a cover.
Reminds me of another occasion that I went camping with your mum.
She prefers if she remains nameless, but you can say my mom. Yeah.
Good. Anyway, we went camping at a place called Brandywine Falls, which is on the road from Vancouver to Whistler, the famous ski resort. And Brandywine Falls is so called because there's a waterfall where the not the Cheakamus River, the Brandywine River runs to a cliff and then crashes down over 100 feet.
A little known fact is this river is 50% brandy and 50% wine, and this is the waterfall that mixes.
Apparently, it was so named after a couple of prospectors, the first white men that got there, and one drank brandy and the other drank wine, because one was rich and one was poor, I guess. I don't know. Anyway, they named the Brandywine after their favorite drinks.
Oh yeah.
There's no such thing as Brandywine. No. There's brandy and there's wine. Mm-hmm. But we camped there in the forest, not far off the road, and it pissed with rain. It was November the 11th, the holiday, Armistice Day. We celebrated it. We had a tarp. At least we had a tarp. We stretched the tarp out flat between the trees and got under it out of the rain, lit a fire, and then hauled in the firewood from the surrounding bush and chopped it up into lengths and then laid it all around the fire to get dry, because of course it was soaking wet. And there's a railway runs nearby. In those days it was called the PGE, the Pacific Great Eastern Railway. Now it's called the BC Railway. But this railway, being an old-fashioned type of railway, was laid on wooden ties. And it's a well-known fact, even if little-known, well-known, little-known fact that railway ties, in English sleepers, are made of wood which is heavily impregnated with creosote.
Yes.
And it's another well-known fact that creosote is extremely inflammable.
Mm-hmm. Same as power poles and
power poles are another good source of firewood.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Right, so I went out with the axe and I attacked a couple of these ties and got stacks and stacks of good creosote-soaked kindling.
Good stuff to start with.
Good stuff to start a fire, yeah. And then once we got the fire going,
an old railway that wasn't running.
It was running. Oh yeah, the railway was still going. The trains went by about every day. Once a day.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And we kept the fire going 24 hours a day for 3 days. It was a long weekend. And this time it was a very, very long weekend because the rain never quit for a moment. And we just sat under the tarp and got on each other's nerves and kept the fire going and made tea all the time, day and night, never stopped. So that was one lousy way to spend a long weekend, sitting under a blue tarp.
Yeah, depressed.
And a blue tarp affects the human mind. If you sit under a blue tarp, even on a sunny day, you start to feel blue.
Yeah, you got to get an orange tarp.
You've got to get out from under a blue tarp or get an orange tarp or a magenta.
And when we went to the town recently to buy tarps, it was like white or green. So I went with white because that's a lighter color. They didn't have orange.
Yeah. I first found that out with the aid of magic mushrooms in Costa Rica. And I was with a bunch of people, and we were all hilarious, cackling with laughter about nothing, about everything. And we went, and it started to rain.
Like
we got under this blue tarp.
Like 2 days ago, and then a week before that.
What?
Oh, cackling with laughter.
Yeah, it was like
hilarious.
That. And we got under this blue tarp, and the laughter sort of diminished.
Oh.
And finally there was silence, and we were just staring gloomily at each other. And then I said, hey, you know what? It's the blue light coming through the tarp. That's what's affecting our brains.
Yeah.
Let's get out of here. We fled out of the blue tarp, out into the rain, and felt a lot better. We started to laugh again.
Yeah.
So that's when I made the connection that a blue tarp...
it's depressing. It's the blue
leads to
color.
Depression, yeah,
They
the
say
blues.
You got the blues, yeah.
Yeah, the blues are real. Blue light makes the human spirit despondent.
Especially dark blue light. I mean, the sky itself is
Well,
blue.
if it's an overcast, raining day, you don't get much light anyway, and what there is of it, if you're under a tarp, is blue. So God help you.
Yeah. So get an orange tarp.
Get an orange tarp, or stay out in the rain. It'll be at least cheerful rain.
Yeah, dance in the rain.
Yeah.
You didn't have an orange tarp there, right? Maybe there's a blue tarp conspiracy.
I think there is. It's probably
systemic.
The United States government imposing blue tarpism on
all campers.
Well, I can say in all its satellite countries like Canada and the UK. They're all under Uncle Sam's influence, and they all sell blue tarps, and that's
red,
usually the only color you can get.
Yeah, red, white, and blue.
Yeah, it's to lower the spirits, to stamp out rebellion.
Yeah, and freedom.
And sedition, and the longing for injustice or justice or whatever it is. I had a thought this morning. The world is full of injustice, most of it richly deserved. Yeah. That's not a pun, that's an oxymoron.
Really?
Yeah.
Richly
an oxymoron is a moron who went to Oxford University, or better still, taught at Oxford University, and came up with this figure of speech which is contradictory.
Right.
Like
a brilliant man. A brilliant moron.
Yeah, a
Oxford.
brilliant moron. Yeah,
Oxford,
an oxymoron.
Right? They've always got space for
is a word that cancels itself out. Like despondent laughter or hilarious sadness or anything like that. What did I say to start this whole thing off?
Something was
injustice
deserved.
Being richly deserved. Your fate may be unjust, but you deserve it.
How is it an oxymoron? You mean we deserve
because
justice?
Injustice is something that you don't deserve. That's why it's not justice. Justice is what you deserve.
Oh, okay.
But
injustice
is what you deserve.
Oh, I see, yeah.
You deserve to be unfairly punished because you're a human being.
The oxymoron.
Yeah, an oxymoron, yeah.
Like Papillon.
Yeah, no, not Papillon. No, he wasn't an oxymoron.
What? Yeah, but he was unfairly.
He was unfairly punished. Yeah.
That's what I mean. That makes it. That's justice, injustice.
Yeah, but if you do deserve it, then it's not injustice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you could say everyone deserves injustice. Yeah, except dogs,
You can
right?
just see a group of people protesting. We want injustice.
Yeah,
No.
injustice for the masses. You've already got it. Yeah, history is the story of the process of injustice as it develops through the ages. For the injustice of the ancient world, through the injustice of the Middle Ages when they burned witches.
Yeah.
In fact, they burned anyone, everyone who wasn't a Roman Catholic. And to the injustice of the modern world, where what's the injustice today? I don't know of any. But it's all human in origin. Excuse me. That was human in origin too.
Yes, it's all human in origin.
That's another example
Yeah.
of an example of what?
I don't know, man.
Hey! Oh! Oh!
My dad almost died from laughing 2 days ago, and I was like, "That's that thing that they talked about in Monty Python."
What thing?
Oh, when there's this joke that makes people laugh. So
Oh,
hard
you
they
laughed
die.
to
I was like,
death.
"Oh, we were experiencing that."
So it becomes a weapon of war,
Yeah.
this joke.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was funny.
Mm-hmm.
So the British Army was resisting the German army, and the British Army's secret weapon was yet to teach all the soldiers this joke in German.
Yeah.
And when the Germans are advancing, the British soldiers all
Yell
shout
the joke.
out this joke, and the German soldiers just die laughing.
Yeah.
Not a shot was fired.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then the Germans come up with a joke to
Which
fight
they
back.
translated
They
to
try to
English.
make one in English.
But they translate it literally.
No, it wasn't a funny joke. They tried.
No,
really
well, it wasn't
hard.
funny because it was lost in translation.
Oh no! It was the assaulted one. There was two peanuts walked down a street or walked into a bar, and one was assaulted.
Yes.
That was their joke they came up with. It wasn't funny enough to kill. Yeah, it wasn't funny enough to kill people.
No, it wouldn't kill me.
Yeah.
Might keep me amused a few minutes longer.
Oh right, the injustice thing. Well, yeah, there are injustice like racial prejudices. There's indigenous.
Yeah,
people
you can't help being
everywhere.
born weird.
Yeah.
Everyone's born weird in some way or other.
Right. Oh,
But why laugh at you?
I just mean indigenous people of all over the place, right? They get
They get
their
injustice.
stuff taken away.
Yeah, they lose their land, they lose their culture,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Everything.
And they get the benefits of modern civilization, which are
Pay taxes.
pay taxes, yeah, obey the law, don't walk when it says don't walk,
Yeah, keep off the grass.
keep off the grass. Oh yes, definitely keep off the grass. And all dogs must be on a leash.
Yeah, definitely don't let your dog poop on the grass.
Yeah. Or if he does, you've got to eat it.
Yeah, you have
Lick
to clean
it
it
up.
up
Yeah.
completely.
Put it in your pocket. Take it home.
Mhm.
Aye.
A treat for Martha.
Yeah.
Well, that reminds me of your story. Is it Elm Tree or something? I'm not sure.
Oh yeah.
It's your
The
story
elm
where
tree.
why you don't eat lunch. It's you took
Yeah.
your dog out for a walk. He carried the fish and chips back. That's
Yeah.
Elm Tree, right?
Yeah, the elm tree.
You read
Yeah,
that
that's
one
a
out.
true story.
You read that one out on video recently, right?
Yeah.
Like when we went to town, did you read that one? I think so. In the auditorium.
Oh yeah, that's
Okay.
right.
So
Yeah.
we've already got that on video.
Before that massed audience.
Yeah, it was a huge audience.
Yeah, it was.
Of nobody.
Yeah.
Just Bullet and me. But you wanted me to be involved, so really it was just Bullet.
Yeah. Yeah. And Bullet's heard it all before. Haven't you, Bullet? He doesn't say a word.
This is why we went online. See, because in person it didn't really work.
Yeah.
I think in Princeton there's probably lots of preservers, not enough revolutionaries. It's kind of different.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
We didn't do our own marketing too, right?
Yeah.
We let someone else
Christian
do it.
is a. I mean, Christian. Princeton
Yeah.
is a hotbed of pusillanimity, and Christianity, which go hand in glove.
What's pusillanimity?
A pusillanimous person is the sort of.
Never heard that word.
Pusillanimous is sort of.
It's the word of the day now.
Pusillanimous.
It's like mucilagynous.
Or cretinous. It means inferior, but satisfied with the lowest.
Oh.
Everything and
decrepit.
But adulating, admiring yourself.
Okay, so
I'm the most pusillanimous of the pusillanimous.
Yeah. So a dog wallowing in shit, like you were saying before. When I said,
well, no, a dog wallowing in shit is having a good time.
That's a pig in shit.
No, a pig does not wallow in shit unless he's forced to.
Mud then.
Mud, yeah, good clean mud, yeah.
Okay, good soil.
Yeah.
Mm. Okay, but
as
you were
you
saying,
know.
But a pig, it depends on the dog, Dad.
Of course.
Because I was saying, you've had horrible things happen to you, and then you made them into funny stories, and how do you do it? And one was to go to a high perspective and look down on it, like from the eagle's bird's eye view. The other one was wallowing into it more, like a dog wallowing in shit. Like the dog is in the shit, and it wallows in more.
It's happiness. Yeah. Happiness is a bowl of shit. Hey, dig deep. Oh. Enjoy it. Because life is a bowl of shit. I mean, according to some pessimistic philosophers. Or pusillanimous philosophers.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. Pusillanimous is a big word in that epoch-making play Look Back in Anger, which is all about a quarreling married couple living in a slum in London. And they quarrel because of incompatibility, but mainly the man...
At least they don't have a squirrel quarrel like we do here.
Well, they do.
Oh, they do?
Yeah. Well, because the wife lives in a sort of happy fantasy land, like created by Beatrix Potter, like my wife did, who shall be nameless.
Mm-hmm.
She always, in her mind's eye, or a mind's ear, or a mind's stomach, she was always the squirrel.
Oh.
A cute little, agile, optimistic, happy little creature.
Chirping away.
We know the other side of the story here, of course. The squirrel is just a goddamn nuisance. But in her mind, and in the mind of the heroine of Look Back in Anger, the squirrel is a delightful, graceful, quick-witted, charming little creature. And her husband is the big, comforting, strong, confident male. In my case, I was a rabbit. I forget what it was in Look Back in Anger, but anyway, it's the same situation with the wife living in this sort of fairyland and the husband living on Earth, having to work for a living. You call this living?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And
he complains about her, and he complains about her family, because she is from a genteel family.
Yeah.
And the guy finds these parents overbearing and stupid and arrogant and horrible. And he said, the problem with your family is they're pusillanimous. And she doesn't know what it means, so he has to explain to her or demonstrate to her what he means by pusillanimous. She still doesn't get it. But anyway, the play goes on and on and on, just argument, quarrel, throwing things at each other. I guess it all ends happily in divorce. I don't know.
Second life.
Second life.
Yeah.
Yeah, life begins with divorce. Yeah.
Well, there's a need to choose the right one. apparently.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. There's a science to that now.
The science?
Yeah. A science of matchmaking.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Tell me about it.
I don't know that much about it. One of them is
Well, you can. That qualifies you to tell me about it.
One of them, really? Why?
Well, if you don't know much about something, you can tell something all about it.
Oh, you can. Oh,
you can make it up.
Speak out of your bum.
Yeah.
Right. Oh yeah. Well. Okay. Well, core values. You gotta have the same core values.
Core.
And also what you think about relationships, how you see them. Some see them as gardening, and some see them as a fairy tale, as you were saying, the fairy tale thing. So
Yeah.
if one thinks of it, they should both see it the same way. So you should
Oh,
find
yeah,
out how they
right.
think about
Oh,
it.
yeah.
Like gardening is like you nurture them. Like
Yeah.
that's a good way. That's one good way to look at relationships.
Well, the best way to look at a relationship is not to look at it at all, but to live it.
We'll definitely live it. Yes.
Yeah, and love it.
Yes.
Well, the only really thing that really counts
Oh, and
between a
there's
man
another
and
thing.
woman is that she gives you a hard-on.
That's important.
That's the fundamental. What was it?
Requisite. Requisite.
Requisite, yeah. More than a requisite.
That means required. A requirement.
A necessity.
Yeah.
A condition. Yeah, the condition
Yeah. There's that.
for a happy sexual relationship
Definitely.
is happy sex and lots of it.
Yeah.
If you don't have that, then give up.
Totally.
Find someone
Oh,
else.
right. And there's also the buying habits. Like I learned from Matthew Sikich, the 5buyinghabits.com. Those are important too.
You have to buy a good wife.
Like a Russian mail order bride.
Russian?
A Russian mail order bride. Or Japanese. But no, I wasn't talking about that. I just meant that each of you has buying habits. So if you can be completely incompatible by your buying habits. So you have to be compatible.
So you have to analyze your buying habits?
Yeah. Yeah. Like
How the hell
I guess
do you do
basically a preserver doesn't get along with a revolutionary, for example. So don't match up like that. Like revolutionaries change the system, they want to radically change the system from
Right.
outside the system.
Yeah.
Preservers hate change.
Right.
They want to keep things the same.
Yeah.
Family, tradition, church, it's
all
got to be the
satisfying.
same.
Yeah.
So the two don't get along. They aren't going to want to do the same things.
Right, because they're politically different.
And you can see that their values, their core values of life and philosophy are different, right? So
Yeah.
the buying habits is definitely a useful personality thing to involve too,
Yeah.
because it makes it simple. There's only 5 buying habits, right? Make sure you know which ones you are and which one they are.
But if you never buy anything,
Then there's love languages, right? But Matthew Sikich says that in the 5 love languages, it doesn't cover them all. He's missing 2. Basically, there's senses, so it's missing like the sense of like taste, right? Because the way to a man's heart is through his belly, right?
and what hangs below it.
Yeah, right. But I was
Yeah.
just talking about food there.
You were
taste
talking
of the
about
food.
food.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Oh,
So
how
that's
do we
only
get
a little
into
bit.
this? Oh
That's
yeah,
only a
the
little
word
bit of it.
pusillanimous.
That's just
Should
a
look
bit
it
of
up in the dictionary. I'll give
It's
you.
a very large dictionary.
No, I'll choose the
smaller
smaller
one.
one. I've got a smaller one which is a lot easier to handle.
Okay, well that was part 1, and in a moment we'll have part 2 because this video is far too long. Thanks
where
for
the hell
following along with us, and learn more from my dad
yeah.
at dixtravels.com. There's just so many stories there. It's becoming quite a treasure trove of illumination.
Yeah.